My name is Brad, and I'm the founder and director of Alike. I come from a wonderful village in the heart of North Yorkshire, grew up there. I experienced primary school, secondary school before the age of social media, which meant that community was everything, especially your local community, your family and your friends. I knew from a very young age that I was different, didn't know quite what that was. I just knew I was different. And the way I describe it is there was a wall, and I knew there was something behind that wall, but I was terrified to peek over that wall. So for a long time I left it there. And whatever that was causing me frustration because I wasn't being open and honest with myself, and I wasn't being open and honest with my loved ones, which meant that I lived a lot of my younger life feeling quite isolated. And the term "you can be lonely when surrounded by people" really resonated with me growing up, because I was surrounded by people, but I wasn't connecting with them because I wasn't being myself. When I turned 17, I came out of the closet. I figured out what this thing was. I told my parents, I told my friends, my loved ones, and I was embraced with open arms. And I'm very aware that my experience of coming out to my community was a privileged one, because sadly there are people who come out and are honest and open about who they are, and they're rejected by their loved ones. I thankfully didn't face that. That's what's the most important thing, is happiness for everybody. And I experienced that when I came out of the closet finally. But sadly, in this period of new expression and figuring out who I am, there was something a little bit more sinister lurking beneath the surface. So when I was 19, June 2013, I was diagnosed with chronic myeloid leukemia. But being in a situation where the NHS is your lifeline gave me a completely new perspective. Health is the most important thing. And I had that realization quite early on, which I kind of think was a sense of liberation. It's like, oh, I've faced this thing which could have killed me, nearly did, but it didn't. I just felt such a freedom in that. And it was just this switch. I can't describe it. It was just this switch of, this is what I want to do. And I think it was because of that liberation. When I thought of something and I wanted to do it, I did it. There wasn't any of the fear behind it, because I'd faced my own mortality at 19. And so I found myself 19, living in London, studying business management, and then throwing myself into whatever took my fancy. So I worked in fashion for a little bit, public relations, broadcast, meeting incredible people, going to incredible events, meeting people in different industries, volunteering for the NHS Youth Forum, volunteering for Macmillan, really huge charities and some local and small charities, and starting to put this picture together of what the experience of living with cancer was like for everybody, not just in villages, not just in cities, but across the country. And that really was the foundation of the work that I'm doing now. In 2017, I went in just for a normal checkup, and I used to see my consultant once a month. I was living with cancer. She basically just said, "We believe the treatment has stopped working." They tried me on some different generations of the medication that I was on in order to have a response to the medication. And I think ultimately they decided that that approach wasn't working. And it meant that in such a short space of time, the leukemia within my body had grown again. So in August 2017, I got the news that I needed to have a bone marrow transplant, which was absolutely devastating. And that really was the beginning of the next phase of my life. I had felt very lonely and isolated, cut off from my loved ones and my community. And I knew that I needed to do something about that. And it was that emotion of feeling lonely and isolated that inspired me to do what I'm doing today and to create Alike. Now, because of everything that I'd experienced beforehand, not just my diagnosis in a rural area, I was now facing cancer in an urban centre. I'd also volunteered for different charities. I'd started to put this picture together, as I said, but I knew there was something missing. And what was missing was the ability to connect with people, to connect with my community. I felt just so cut off. And And the way you do that is through apps. So when you're going through something like cancer, yes, I could speak to my parents, I could speak to my brother, I could speak to my loved ones, but they could not understand what I was going through. So I had to speak to other people that were going through it. And that's why I created a iOS and Android peer support app to combat loneliness and isolation amongst people diagnosed with cancer. Our innovation lies in how we've actually repurposed technology that's already available. We have a profile, we have a user-generated content feed, and we have the ability to flick through profiles and send a message. All things we're very familiar with. Like, we use these features in our everyday lives, whether it be for dating, whether it be for finding friends or finding business partners and finding restaurants, whatever it be, we're familiar with these features. So we took these and thought, right, how do we use these features for the cancer community? And that's what we've done. We didn't need to reinvent the wheel, we just needed to adapt it. And there's been an incredible response since it launched, and that just shows that what we've built is fit for purpose, and that's why I'm so proud of it. I think climate change is the obvious answer, but I actually think, because of the work that I do, detachment, lack of community, and loneliness and isolation is something that's facing us as a global community. I'm passionate about digital connection, but sometimes you can feel lonely in the digital world. So it's all about finding your tribe. And I think when we connect meaningfully and we come together and work together, we can combat anything. And I think that's how we will truly combat climate change, is by connecting and working together. So the goal is to develop alike into a global leader in peer support. People who need it, impacted by cancer across the world, are using it, because I think there's a need for it. So that's the specific one. But I think generally, I want to use my time wisely, because a lifetime is finite. And I want to leave my mark, but also help other people leave their mark too, which is why I'm passionate about community and connection. Of course it will. I think, not to quote Jurassic Park, but life finds a way. I think I'm blessed to be a part of a lot of different communities. And I know I keep using that word, but it's so important. Community is so important to us as human beings. I'm a part of so many different communities, and I get to meet incredible young leaders who are at the forefront of change. Young women who are advocating for women's rights all over the world, period poverty. Young leaders that are changing their communities, developing future generations. So because I know this, because I work with these people, that gives me such a sense of trust in the future, that I know that in young people's hands, humanity will definitely survive. Listen, and listen to people, especially those from marginalized and vulnerable communities, because they're not being heard and they should be. I think that politics is a huge part of our discourse, and I'm a realist and an idealist. But I think ultimately, living a happy and healthy life is a right of everybody. And I think we have to cut through some of the toxicity that's developing within society and just work together. And so I would say to those in charge, whether it be of corporations or in charge of governments, that you have to listen to communities for them to thrive. Two ways: support alike and our mission. The second is believe in us. Alike is being made for the community, by the community. So we know it's needed. So believe us, it's needed. Help support us, make it a reality, and spread it across the world.